All right, science, what it is, what it is not. There's some misconceptions about what science is because of poor definitions and things. If we look at reality, the facts, what kind of things are science and what are not. When we start making more refined judgments and investigations, it's clearer. We can see, and this will depend on how much one can see, will depend on where one is cognitively and what one's learned about science and logic and reasoning and practice. Just like, how do we learn about people? We don't know when we are 6 months old that humans are rational animals. That takes a long time to develop. Some people will never really get there. They can mouth it, but they don't understand it. When we're young, all we know is that really young, a human is something with a certain shape. Then something with a certain shape that can do certain things that others can't. And then we learn about making language and doing things like that. So also with science, our understanding of it develops necessarily. But science, some ideas about it on what, from Oxford Languages Dictionary. Science, a systematically organized body of knowledge on a particular subject. It's a start. It's organized, it's systematic, but that's all one can say at a certain point, but there's more to science than that. Or on this other one from the same site, the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observations and experiment. That's getting a little better. Identifying observation doesn't necessarily involve experiment. One can still be scientific without experiment. Math is a science. Deal with it. In some sciences, we can't do so much experiment. History is a science. We got observation. And then there's the social world they're not including here. Physical and natural world. Yeah, social is natural, but it ain't like physics and chemistry are the only thing that are sciences. Sorry. Economics, history, sociology, anthropology, those are sciences. But that's getting a little better. But that can still leave a little wiggle room for the irrational. Not so much as the other one. The first one, there's more room, systematically organized. You can still have someone Platonic or Kantian or irrational, liking that. And this other one, maybe someone can be like Popper or Dewey, be irrational and focus on the observation, experiment, and playing with things. But, or Wikipedia, science is a systematic endeavor that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations, predictions about the universe, unquote. Another poor one. So, a better definition, deeper, about what science is, that looks at what's going on. What did Aristotle do? What did Galileo do? What did Newton do? What did William Harvey do? What did Darwin do? What does Baron Heinrich do? What did Marie Curie do? Things like that. Look at these scientists, see how things develop. Not what some people want to say about it, but what are the actual facts? And include different sciences. Then we see that science, again, to get this, we need to actually look at the history of science, actual scientific practice, not what some people might say about it or some misrepresentations. We got to be scientific about science. Just because someone has studied a science doesn't mean they know science. Someone who studied science, here's the person looking at the material world, for example, and looking at physics. They're studying material things. To know what science is, you got to be scientific about science. Being scientific about science means looking at our thought processes, and those are the things that you study instead of material things. So if someone wants to know about projectiles, they look at projectiles and they do a little work in figuring out how we know that, or they memorize some stuff. So when people are doing some new stuff like Galileo and Newton, to some extent they got to function as epistemologists, as logicians. Epistemology is the broader concept, but they got to think about what they're doing, and then other people can like learn that, memorize it, be second-handed. Some, not all. Some are first-handed still when they get it. Some second or third-handed. They don't really get what Newton did or Galileo, but they got to do some of that to some extent. But to know what science is, we have to do science on how we think and know the world. So knowing the world is different than knowing how we know the world. When we look at how things were done, when we look at science scientifically, we will see that science is the inductive, integrated understanding of the nature of some things and their cause-effect relationships in some category. Science is the inductive, integrated understanding of the nature of things and their cause-effect relationships. Peace.